Hello, Ernest. Welcome to you and welcome to your listeners. It's exactly 10 minutes after 6 o'clock when the sun has just gone down here in the city of Gold. Ernest, it's a very cold and crispy Wednesday evening here in Johannesburg. But I've got some enlightening news for you, especially as Brazilians. The Brazilian fans, Ernest, are still licking their wounds. And I will be telling you a little bit more about that later.
I also understand, Solomon, that the Oscar case has closed. So what's going on there?
And indeed, the defense has closed its case in the Oscar Pistorius case, the murder case that he is accused of murdering his girlfriend, Rivia Steenkamp, on Valentine's Day last year. The case was, the defense came to the closure because they were unable to call any further witnesses. So this means that on the 4th of August, the defense will then hand in its head of arguments, and on the 7th of August, the state will do the same. That will bring to some closure. And I have to then hasten to say that the judge, the presiding judge, George Masipa, has already indicated that those heads of arguments will not be published in the media. So when that happens, on the 7th of August, we will then have some kind of finality as to the way forward. But for now, it's an agonizing 1 month wait for the accused person, Mr. Oscar Pistorius.
Solomon, I am not quite sure if I say that the fiscal year has just begun in South Africa, but what I understand is that tax experts have converged in one of the cities out there to discuss tax issues. What is going on in this sector?
And indeed, what is happening in South Africa right now, starting on the 1st of July onto the 30th of September 2014, is that every taxpayer in South Africa needs to go and hand in their tax returns. What this means is that across the board, if you are a taxpayer, if you are working or whatever you're doing, a company, you registered for VAT, which is value-added tax, you have 3 months to go into the offices of the South African Revenue Office to hand in your tax return. All the money that you will collect either for unemployment insurance fund, the skills levies fund, the fund, the money that the PAYE, which is the pay as you earn tax, on all sorts of tax. This is the official tax season for those that have to hand in their tax manually, that need to go into the revenue office and hand in their tax. It's also a very important item on the fiscal year here, because this is where government gets to get some of its money that it pays for all its projects. So the Minister of Finance goes to Parliament. That happens every February, and says to everyone that, and tells the world that our budget for this year is an X amount. This is where they get most of that money, if not all of it. And so those that have to do a manual filing have to have gone in between the 1st of July and they have until the 30th of September to do so. But if you're filing online, which means you can submit your tax return at a company level or as an individual or as an organization, you can do it online until the 1st of January 2015.
Solomon, we are getting some very unpalatable news coming from South Africa that animals are starving and dying on farms in the northwest region of that country. And we hear this has preoccupied some 3 NCOP chairpersons. What is this all about, Solomon?
And indeed, it is true. The National Council of Provinces chairperson, which is some kind of an upper house of parliament in South Africa, the national chairperson of that chambers, has been in her farm. She has a farm that has animals in terms of goats, cattle, and chicken and all sorts, which have been going through a hard time because I don't know what happened. But what we hear in the media is that their animals dying, and the anti-animal cruelty had to obtain a court order in order to go and remove those animals to take them into proper care. In this country, and I should tell you and the listeners, animal cruelty is a very serious offense. And so because this individual is a very high-profile politician and a leader in the country, it has kind of embroiled in African National Congress because she is also a member of the African National Congress. So as such,
Okay, looks like we have lost our correspondent Solomon Atah there, who was reporting there from South Africa. We'll definitely come back to him. Okay, it's 12:15. Let's see if Solomon is back on the line. Solomon, sorry, we lost you, but apparently you are back.
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead, Solomon.
Okay, so these animals were forcefully removed by the Animal Anti-Cruelty League, which went onto her farm last week to remove some of the animals. And Ernest, the pictures that we saw on television were quite graphic in terms of some of the animals already very weak and some had already died. So that has kind of embroiled the African National Congress into coming to her defense and saying that, well, she is a farmer, she could equally make any mistakes, and those sort of things were likely to happen to any kind of a farmer. But what has happened is that the country is not buying. They're saying that someone of her caliber should be able to understand a little bit of the in and out of having an animal farm. Ernest?
Solomon, we also hear that some teenage boys have lost their lives because of circumcision. This is not very good news coming from that end. Could you throw more light on this, Solomon?
Indeed, Ernest, is a very, this is a season whereby teenage boys, especially in the Kanjo tradition, in the Kanjo community in South Africa, go to obtain or to go through the rite of passage. What this means is that teenage boys, when they are born, in this culture, they are not circumcised. They are only circumcised at a later stage in their life, when they are beginning from the age when they are teenagers. So in this country, at the moment, some of the boys who went to go through the rite of passage, because it's a very important factor, important element in their life, becoming a man or going through the rite of passage, to become a man in the community, they had to be circumcised through traditional means. And this is not fortunate news for some of the parents whose teenage boys have died. And the death toll has risen. As at yesterday, we had 24 deaths, which is an alarming number. In fact, one is one too many. So it's a very sad day for some of the parents whose kids have not been able to return from the mountain, as it were.
24 deaths is really, really alarming, and we must say it's not very good news coming there from South Africa. We hope that authorities are going to get into this and make sure that the situation is redressed. Solomon, thank you so much. But before you go away, what is the weather out there? In Columbus, Ohio, it's sunny, sunshine, warm temperatures. It's a bright day here.
And then, before I get into the weather, I have to tell you that the weather is particularly cold, especially for Brazilian soccer fans.
I can imagine.
The humiliation that they faced or they received from the hands, or should I say from the legs of the Germans, going down 2 goals to 1 have left them reeling. And the weather that is particularly cold today, as it was yesterday and will be until Tuesday, in fact, it's becoming worse for the Brazilian fans. But if you're a German fan, I'm sure it is a hot day. Generally, it is cold conditions here in Johannesburg, but we've been asked to keep warm and to stay indoors because it's getting quite crispy. And on that note, Ernest, next week I will be putting together a report for you on the most competitive places and countries to do business in Africa, because Africa, the top 10 countries that are emerging, or the top 10 countries that are experiencing growth this year are in Africa. So, in fact, next year you'll have a wonderful economic package from Johannesburg. And this is Solomon Atah for Southside Connect, only on African Cocktail in the City of Gold in Johannesburg.
We can't wait to have that very handsome economic package which Solomon has promised for next week. His name is Solomon Atah, our correspondent in South Africa. Solomon, thank you so much, and we wish you a very best time out there in Johannesburg. Thank you once again, and we hope to have you next week. Okay, this is African Cocktail, 20 minutes past 12. We still have many stopovers. We shall be making a stopover in Douala, Cameroon, where one of our correspondents will be telling us what has been going on in Central Africa. Then we shall also go to Houston, Texas, to meet Nollywood actor Perez Igbe, and of course to Maryland, where Joy Dominion, up-and-coming actress, nominee of AfriFimo Awards, is on standby. So much in this edition of the show. Now let's have some music, then we'll be right back.